Monica Harris wasn't just moving into a new house, she was stepping into a whole new chapter. The moving truck arrived late Tuesday morning, the kind of quiet time when most people were at work. But not in Rose Grove, California. In this suburban neighborhood, people noticed everything. Even before the truck backed into her driveway, someone was already watching from across the street. Monica, 42, stood tall beside her black SUV with a clipboard in hand. She gave calm instructions to the movers, her voice steady and her eyes sharp. She wore jeans, boots, and a plain long-sleeved shirt with a tiny stain from breakfast. But she didn't care. This wasn't about appearances. This was about starting over. The house was beautiful. 2 stories, Spanish tile roof, neat hedges, beige stucco. It was the kind of place that whispered, "I made it." And Monica had. Just not in the way her neighbors might assume. The first to come over was a tall man in khaki shorts and a golf cap. He introduced himself as Frank Delaney, the head of the Homeowners Association, HOA for short. His handshake was stiff, and he didn't even look her in the eye. "You moving in alone?" he asked, glancing at the security camera boxes stacked near her front door. Monica smiled lightly. "Not exactly. Everyone's not here yet." Frank nodded, clearly suspicious. "Well, we like to keep things in order around here." Then, without waiting for a reply, he walked off behind his hedge. By sunset, Monica had already unpacked the basics. Her office was ready. The kitchen was stocked. No loud music, no guests, just her, a few porch plants, and 1 folding chair. The next morning, a note appeared under her doormat. Reminder: all porch decorations must follow HOA rules. No flags, religious symbols, or political messages. No name, no signature. Monica laughed. There was no flag, just a small, hand-painted sun her niece made in art class. It hung crookedly beside her front door. Later that day, as she adjusted her mailbox because the HOA claimed it was too tall, a woman in yoga pants walked by slowly with her dog. "New here?" the woman asked, her eyes lingering on Monica's house. "Looks like it," Monica replied, standing up straight. "Well, the HOA likes things done a certain way," the woman said. "Keeps everything looking nice." Monica smiled. "I read the rule book." The woman gave a tight laugh. "Good. We like neighbors who follow the rules." The message was clear, but what they didn't know, what none of them could guess, was that Monica had read more than just a neighborhood rule book. She'd read military intel reports. She'd navigated crisis zones, handled international threats, and solved problems most people couldn't imagine. A homeowners association? That wasn't going to scare her. Still, something felt off. This wasn't just a new town. It felt like she'd stepped into a performance. Neighbors smiling without warmth. Small talk that felt more like surveillance. So, Monica set up her cameras, not because she was paranoid, because she was prepared. 1 above the door, 1 at the side, 2 more in the yard to cover every blind spot. A normal person wouldn't even notice. That night, she sat on the porch with a glass of water. A soft breeze moved the leaves. A single car drove by slowly, then sped up once it passed her house. She wasn't scared, but she wasn't comfortable either. She grabbed an old phone and typed a message to a contact saved as plumbing services. Move-in complete. Behavior odd. Flags already appearing, standing by. She didn't wait for a reply. But deep down, Monica knew. This neighborhood wasn't going to stay quiet for long. By the second week, the tension had started to grow legs. It began with a printed notice taped to Monica's mailbox. Driveway must stay clear of large vehicles. Use your garage for storage. Her black SUV was parked neatly, well within the driveway. It wasn't blocking the sidewalk or touching any lawns. Monica peeled the paper off and dropped it straight into the recycling bin. The next day, a man she hadn't seen before stood at the edge of her lawn, arms crossed, just watching. Monica was watering her succulents. "Hey there," she called out politely. The man didn't respond. He stared a second longer, then turned and walked away. That night, a second note appeared. This one was printed in all caps. "No unauthorized vehicles. Surveillance is active." Surveillance? Monica almost laughed. The irony was wild. She was the one with the cameras, and she was watching closely. The next few days brought more strange moments. Her trash was skipped on pickup day. Every neighbor's bin had been emptied, except hers. When she called the sanitation office, they told her something odd. "Actually," the woman on the phone said, "your address was marked as vacant." Monica exhaled slowly. "I live here," she said firmly. "We'll fix it," the woman promised. That night, Monica noticed something else. Her back fence gate was slightly open. Not swung wide, just ajar enough to make her suspicious. She checked the lock. Still in place, but the chain had a fresh scuff. Someone had tried it. That was enough. Monica went to her home office, opened a hidden drawer, and powered on her encrypted tablet. She typed, quickly, "Possible harassment. Escalation likely. Request low-level support. Passive monitoring engaged." Seconds later, a reply appeared. "Permission granted. Detail active." Now, things were in motion. One street over, an older woman named Nina Bell sat quietly in her kitchen, sipping tea. She looked like any other retired neighbor. Sweet, chatty, a little obsessed with her garden. What nobody on Rosegrove Court knew was that Nina used to work in logistics and surveillance for an international security firm. A quiet favor Monica had done for her years ago had just been called in. The very next morning, Nina knocked on Monica's door. She held a basket of muffins and smiled warmly. "Thought you might want some company," she said. Monica accepted the basket, letting her in. "I'm guessing you're not just here for baked goods." Nina leaned closer and whispered, "Already rerouted 2 drones flying over your property. HOA's not your only problem." But before Monica could ask what she meant, someone knocked at the door again. This time, it wasn't muffins. It was 4:42 p.m. when they arrived. Not in a squad car, not in an official HOA vehicle, just a plain silver sedan with a cracked headlight and windows tinted way too dark. 2 men stepped out, khaki pants, polo shirts, laminated badges clipped to their belts, badges that looked like they'd been printed at home. One had a clipboard. The other held a phone, pretending to take pictures of Monica's yard. Monica had seen this kind of move before. Not in quiet suburbs, but in Havana, in Berlin, in places where power wore fake uniforms and fake smiles. Before they could even knock, she opened the door. Nina was sitting calmly inside, sipping tea like it was just another Wednesday. One of the men, clipboard in hand, smiled wide. "You must be Ms. Harris. We're with the Rosegrove HOA Enforcement Committee. We just need to go over a few violations with you." Monica leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Your badges don't scan. You're not listed in the HOA directory. And the HOA doesn't do in-person visits without a 72-hour notice." The man blinked. His smile faltered. "Ma'am, your porch has unauthorized items, and we've had complaints about frequent visitors." "Is that illegal?" Monica asked calmly. The second man stepped forward. "We need you to come outside. We'll walk you through the infractions." "No thanks," she said without moving. The first man's tone shifted. "Look, we're trying to help you avoid fines. This could escalate." "I doubt that." They exchanged a quick look, and then, without warning, they moved. One man reached for Monica's arm. The other tried to pull open the screen door, but they didn't know who they were dealing with. Nina stood up fast, faster than anyone expected. "Back away," she said sharply, her voice like a command. Her phone was already in her hand, fingers pressing a silent code. "Who are you?" one of the men snapped. Monica didn't flinch. She didn't scream. She pivoted smoothly, grabbing the man's wrist, thumb tucked in, elbow bent, a perfect breakaway move. He stumbled back with a curse. "Enough," Monica said, voice low and steady. The second man lunged again, until the sound of tires on gravel made them freeze. Two black SUVs turned onto the street. No lights, no sirens, just silent, steady power. The men looked back, calculating their odds. "You can run," Monica warned, "but it'll be worse." The SUVs stopped. 4 people stepped out. Plain clothes, sunglasses, no visible weapons. But they moved with precision, fast, trained. The man with the phone tried to bolt. He made it 6 feet before he was face down on the pavement. The clipboard guy? He just sat down on the porch step, like someone had unplugged his courage. One of the agents, tall, gray-haired, approached Monica. "Miss Harris, are you okay?" She nodded. "Minimal contact. No injuries. Cameras caught everything." "Good," he said, then turned to Nina. "Thanks for the ping." Nina just shrugged. Felt like the right moment. Within 10 minutes, both fake enforcers were zip-tied and seated on the curb like scolded children. Curtains twitched. Garage doors cracked open. But no one stepped forward. Not even Frank Delaney. The taller man in cuffs finally spoke. "We were just trying to make sure the neighborhood stayed safe." Monica narrowed her eyes. "Safe from what?" He didn't answer, but he looked, just briefly, toward Frank Delaney's house. That glance didn't go unnoticed. Not by Monica, not by the agents, and not by Nina, who was now standing silently beside the porch steps, arms crossed like she was watching a chessboard come to life. One of the plainclothes agents, a woman with sharp eyes and a crisp New Jersey accent, gave a small nod to her partner and strolled down the sidewalk. She knocked on Frank Delaney's door. He didn't answer. Minutes later, she called in a secondary team, unmarked cars, quiet, cold, efficient. By now, more neighbors had wandered outside, whispering, pretending to sweep their driveways, pretending not to stare. Monica stayed on her porch, calm, watching it all unfold. Nina stood next to her. "He was never that smart," Nina muttered. "You know him?" Monica asked. "Not personally, but I've been watching his cameras for weeks." Monica raised an eyebrow. "The ones he said were for wildlife." Nina gave a half smile. "Yeah, funny how wildlife always looks like women walking their dogs, or kids riding bikes." Back on the curb, the clipboard guy, real name Gregory Melman, was led into one of the SUVs. He had a record for impersonating an officer in Arizona. The other man, Ronan Kessler, had a sealed juvenile file and lived just outside city limits. Neither of them lived in Rosegrove. They were hired hands, but their paychecks? Those pointed somewhere. Another agent walked up to Monica, crouched down to her level. "We're pulling surveillance footage now. Your neighbor across the street has security cams. We're accessing them through a municipal override. You think he's involved? I think someone thought you'd be an easy target." Monica looked across the street. Frank's blinds were shut tight now. "You want to know what's wild?" the agent said. "This happens more often than you'd believe. Fake HOAs, private enforcers, rogue residents. It all flies under the radar." "But not today," Nina said quietly. "Today, they picked the wrong house." An hour later, the feds had enough evidence to knock on Frank Delaney's door again. This time, he opened it. Monica couldn't hear everything they said, but she saw his face. The moment he realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding, it was a federal investigation now. They asked him about shell companies, about fake violation reports, about why he'd logged anonymous police calls from his address. He tried to play it off. "Just doing my part to keep things in order," he reportedly said. But it wasn't about order. It was about control. And Monica, she didn't play by those rules. By the next morning, the neighborhood felt different. Garage doors stayed shut. Morning walkers skipped their routines. Even the chatty couple on the corner avoided eye contact. The usual rhythm was broken, and everyone knew why. Monica sat on her porch, coffee in hand. No book, no music, just watching. She'd lived under scrutiny before, in places where the wrong smile could get you questioned. But this was different. It was quiet judgment wrapped in concern. Nina joined her mid-morning, holding a file and looking serious. "They were digging deeper than I thought," she said. "I found 3 more surveillance devices near your yard, hidden in sprinkler heads." Monica's eyes widened. "Motion sensors, thermal readers," Nina explained. "That's not HOA tech, that's military grade." That afternoon, a black government SUV rolled up again. This time, with official subpoenas in hand, the investigation was expanding. Frank Delaney's financials told a bigger story. He'd been sending payments to a company called Civic Harmony Consultants, LLC, a fake organization that posed as an HOA enforcement group. But it wasn't just fake notices or intimidation. It was a whole system, a structure designed to pressure people into leaving. And it wasn't even that well hidden. Later that day, a woman from the real HOA board showed up at Monica's door. Her name was Marisol Dupré, soft-spoken, holding a notepad, visibly shaken. I had no idea," she stammered. "Frank handled all enforcement stuff. He told us you approved the visits." Monica looked her in the eye. "He lied." Marisol nodded slowly. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry," Monica said. "Be honest. Let people know what happened." "We will." Marisol turned to leave, but paused halfway down the steps. "If it means anything, we're grateful you stayed calm." Monica's voice didn't rise. She just said, "I didn't stay calm. I stayed prepared." Word spread beyond the neighborhood. By the weekend, a local news van had shown up, filming from a distance. A neighbor's doorbell camera clip showing the confrontation had made it online. And it went viral. People across the country began commenting, "This happened to my brother in Texas." Same story in Arizona, but the police sided with the HOA, "This is real," using rules to push people out. It happens. Rose Grove had become a talking point, not for its nice lawns or school district, but for what happens when fake power thinks no one will push back. That evening, Monica and Nina sat on the porch again. 2 chairs, 2 glasses of wine. The porch light buzzed softly above them. "You thinking of moving?" Nina asked. "No," Monica replied, "not yet." Nina nodded. "Good. Things are different now. They know someone's watching back. But the real change wasn't in the neighbors. It was in Monica. She saw it clearly now. How silence gave others room to act. How just one strong response could shut it all down. 2 days later, she was in a quiet building near the Sacramento Municipal Complex. No press, no headlines, just 4 people in a private room. Monica sat at the end of the table in black clothes, a folder in front of her. Next to her, Nina, calm as always. Across from them, Agent Colin Braddock, leading the federal investigation, and a representative from Homeland Security. Braddock spoke first. What you uncovered goes beyond your HOA. That group, Civic Harmony Consultants, has been operating in several western states. He tapped a tablet. They prey on quiet neighborhoods, target people who look different, who don't fit the mold. They build fake authority, intimidate, push. Nina added, this wasn't just harassment, they were collecting data, thermal sensors, motion tags, military-grade stuff. The Homeland rep finally spoke. Your home was flagged months ago. We found an old encrypted message. Braddock slid a paper across the table. Subject line, new resident, confirm background, CIA link. Monica stared at the printout. Someone was checking on me before I even moved in? We believe so, Braddock nodded. They didn't know who you were, but they knew enough to be nervous. That's why things started so quickly. They were testing you. If I'd reacted the wrong way, Monica began, they would have made you look like the problem, he finished. It was a pattern. Push, provoke, then flip the story. Nina leaned back. But they messed with the wrong one this time. After the meeting, as they walked out, Monica was quiet. You think this will stick? She asked. Some of it will, Nina said. Some will be buried. But the silence is broken now. People are watching. Back home, Monica pulled out an old photo album. Inside, a faded picture of her mother, standing strong in front of their small house in Paterson, New Jersey. Years ago, her mom had fought off a shady neighbor trying to force them out over a zoning complaint. Monica smiled. That fire still lived on. At sunset, she stepped out onto the porch again. This time, she wasn't invisible. Neighbors were out, walking dogs, watering plants. A man across the street waved. Monica didn't wave back. Not yet. She sat, arms crossed, calm, unshaken. I used to think I could just buy peace, she said aloud. Nina, joining her, replied without looking up, You still can. But it costs more than most people expect. They sat there for a long while, silent, watching, not out of fear, but because being visible was now part of survival. The worst had passed, but Monica wasn't naive. The real win wasn't the arrests. It was never shrinking again. A week later, things looked normal again. Lawns mowed, kids on bikes, but a new awareness lingered. Some waved, some didn't. A few looked like they wanted to say sorry, but didn't know how. Monica didn't wait for that. She lived life her way. Working from home, walking around the block again, not because she had to, but because she could. Nina showed up one evening with a folded lawn chair and a bottle of mineral water. Thought I'd keep you company. They watched the sky turn orange. I've been thinking, Nina said. Why do you think they were so bold? Monica didn't hesitate. They didn't need to know who I was. They just assumed I wouldn't fight back. Nina nodded. Because most people can't. And that was the truth. Not everyone has government clearance. Not everyone has training. Not everyone has a Nina next door. But that's exactly why Monica's stand mattered. What happened in Rosegrove wasn't just about HOA rules or petty notes. It was about a system, quiet, controlling, built to push people out without ever raising its voice. And it worked, until someone broke the script. That night, Monica wrote a letter, not to the HOA, not to the neighbors, but to a young woman she hadn't met yet, someone who might one day face the same thing. She wrote, Don't wait to be given space. Take it, quietly if you can, loudly if you must. They'll test you, but they always underestimate what they don't understand. Keep your receipts, keep calm, stay visible, even when they want you invisible. She folded the note and slipped it into a journal next to her old badge. Not a trophy, not a memory, a reminder. Because this wasn't just about a porch or a policy. It was about how far people will go to protect their illusion of control, and how fast that illusion falls when someone refuses to play along.